A wise man would let his wife meet his mentor. If you won't, that tells you something.
Welcome to the Couple Cure.
You've probably been the one that has been holding him accountable or his primary accountability partner for years. You might also be the only person pointing out his blind spots or pushing him to grow or change. And you're also probably managing his progress because most addicts, especially early on, are totally willing to let somebody else do the work for them. And that's exhausting, and it really doesn't need to be your job. A good mentor can help take some of that weight off of you, not because you're not capable, but because, number one, you need to heal and take care of yourself, and because the dynamic between a wife and a mentor is completely different for the addict. He can hear things from another man, again, not because your words are wrong or not helpful, but because he doesn't necessarily feel the shame from someone else, especially when that mentor has said, yeah, man, I've done similar things or done things just as stupid or whatever. That mentor can give him a safe place without the relationship being at stake and the guy feeling like any word that comes out of his mouth is just going to cause everything to blow up. The kind of person that he finds to be his mentor matters, and you get to have some say in this. You get to have some input, because not every man who offers to help is the right fit. The mentor that you want, that he wants, has the character that you want your husband to develop. He's the kind of guy you want your husband to eventually become. He may not be the most impressive person in the room or have the biggest paycheck or drive the nice car. He's a man who shares his failures and his wins. He's not somebody who needs to wear a mask anymore. He's not performing. He is who he is most of the time. While he has a right to privacy, there are some things that I do not share with anybody but people closest to me. The mentor doesn't have a right to secrecy. So if there's something going on for the mentor that just feels off, or you feel like this guy isn't telling me everything I need to know, that's okay. There's a place for you to bring that up and say, there's just something that I don't feel comfortable with. You should feel comfortable with not only who this person is, but what he represents. And one thing I would call out there is, how does he treat people that he doesn't always agree with? Because a good mentor is somebody who has learned that I'm not going to get along with everybody. I'm not going to see things the same way, but I can still treat people well. I don't need to use power over type dynamics to get people to do things. It will be because people respect me. If your husband is wise, he will let you meet his mentor. You both want to agree that whoever this mentor is somebody who would be valuable to both of you. And if he were to pick somebody and say, well, yeah, I've already got a mentor, but he won't let you meet him, that's something that you should pay attention to, especially if he won't tell you anything about the guy. Why would you want him to have a mentor? Well, because that mentor can sit with him in whatever mess he has created without running away from it or saying, that's really not something I can help you with. He may not be able to speak to it directly, but he's been through so many significant challenges himself that he doesn't really flinch at your husband's story. You know, what your husband is struggling with is not that far out of the realm of reality that other people have done. He's not excusing the behavior, but he is taking away one of those things that a lot of addicts land on, which is nobody could be as messed up as I am. And we call that terminal uniqueness, something that makes me so unique that nobody could possibly fix it. And a good mentor can step in and change that line of thinking pretty quickly. This mentor will talk about his failures, not all of them, but most of them, which will give your husband permission to stop hiding his own failures. That mentor has taken off his mask first. Then it's easier for your husband to take the mask off and be real with someone. A mentor will push him deeper than he would go on his own. While I was in a habit of journaling, my journaling was pretty box checking for a while. It was just something that I was doing. And my mentor said what he journals about is, what was my focus today? What was I focused on? Was I focused on myself? Was I focused on other people? Was I focused on God? Just talking about that, it pushed me to do something different. He might give advice, he might give coaching, but he also has compassion and empathy because he knows what it's like to be in the same position that your husband's in, where he's done something stupid and hurtful and does not know how to fix it. Your husband starts showing up differently because he's watching somebody live it out. I sit in 2 meetings a week with my mentor, not because he's meeting with me, but because we're in these 2 meetings together. And I'm watching him live out what he tells me. And I'm watching him live that out with the new guy in the room and with somebody that he doesn't agree with in the room. So I'm not just reading about it, I'm seeing it play out. Where you might see this difference is your husband starts changing because he's watching somebody that he respects, that he finds to be somebody he wants to be like. And he begins to do something different instead of just trying to check a box. My mentor is a pretty impressive guy, but I don't worship him. It's not like an idol worship relationship where, oh my gosh, he's in the room. But I do respect him, and I give him a lot of credit, not just for my own recovery, but for the recovery of a lot of people. And I will sometimes reference him to men in my groups. Something you may see is that your husband starts to apply things without you having to ask him or tell him about it. Like we talked about in the self-awareness episode, he may start bringing patterns to you before you do because he and the mentor have talked it out. His language will possibly change. Now, the recovery world has its own lingo. We have a lot of language that's specific to us, but the mentor will begin to say things in a new way and do things in a new way. While it's not a script, he's absorbing what that guy has to say and a different approach to life, a different way of relating to people. Over time, that mentor's character will start showing up in your husband's behavior. It's not going to be overnight. The trajectory of it all is going to be different, right? So he may be on this kind of slow growth path, but with that mentor, that trajectory can go up quite a bit more quickly. A really good sign is that your husband's starting to do things new, and he didn't learn it from you. He learned it from watching somebody else who knows how to do it well. Some guidelines or boundaries about the mentor: he's not a therapist, right? In a therapy setting, a therapist cannot share his struggles and failings. A mentor can't do the things that a therapist does, so they definitely swim in 2 different worlds. A mentor is not a replacement for professional help if that's what your husband needs. That mentor is further down the road, and so he can walk alongside your husband. And while you don't have to manage the mentor relationship, you do get to have some input onto who this person is, and you also get to evaluate whether or not it's producing real change. If you don't feel like it's getting your husband somewhere, or if your husband is not making some new strides, there may be a place to decide whether or not that's the best mentor for him. How to help your husband find a mentor: you can ask him, is there anybody in your life that has the character you want to develop? Not the career, not the money, not the influence or prestige, but the character. If you can't name somebody, that's okay. There's places to go find people who would potentially be a good mentor for him. You probably found me as a result of that kind of search. I found my mentor in a recovery meeting. In a room full of men, this guy showed up, he started talking, he had an impact on me, and the more I got to know him, the more I realized he was somebody that I could really respect and follow. If there's somebody he can point to and say, yeah, I really want to be like my buddy Dave or this guy that goes to our church or whatever, ask if he's willing to reach out and just set up, hey, can we go grab a coffee together? Or can we go have some lunch? At some point, then ask whether or not you can sit down and meet with that person. Next time, we're going to talk about self-care and rest. We're going to discuss what it looks like when your husband starts to actually take care of himself in a way that brings restoration where he can come back better as opposed to coming back more numb, more distracted. If he hasn't done so yet, send your husband to stormreadymen.com and have him take the assessment.